Back in 1942, a so-called miracle bottle hit the shelves. It promised to clean engines, save fuel, and restore power. But 80 years later, that same promise is now destroying more cars than it saves. Today, 8 popular fuel injector cleaners are still sold, and some can wreck an engine in less than 20,000 miles. Imagine pouring your trust and your $20 into a bottle, only to watch your pistons melt or your catalytic converter clog forever. So here's the real question: which 8 cleaners should you never touch, and which 5 can actually save your car? Picture this: a clogged injector spraying fuel not as a mist, but as dribbles. Every drop burns uneven. Every mile wastes gas. Every ride kills your horsepower. If you've ever bought a bottle from a gas station counter or an auto aisle, you might already be at risk. And in the next few minutes, we'll count down the 8 worst offenders and reveal the 5 proven cleaners trusted worldwide. This is the truth automakers know, but bottle sellers hope you'll never discover. Let's start with number 8, generic cheap cleaners, kerosene and alcohol. Since the 1970s, stores have sold those $3 miracle bottles. They promise to clean injectors and restore lost power. But open the label. They're nothing but kerosene and alcohol, not real PEA detergents. And here's the danger: they don't dissolve carbon. They just break dirt loose. That dirt flows downstream and clogs injectors. It chokes catalytic converters. It leaves drivers with thousands in repairs. What looked like a cheap fix becomes the most expensive mistake. One bottle meant to help can silently cripple your engine. So if these cheap cleaners destroy injectors, what about a brand trusted since the 1940s? 7. Seafoam motor treatment. It began in 1942. A small white can called Seafoam promised to be a cure-all. For over 80 years, it's been sold as a trusted engine saver. But here's the truth: Seafoam is just naphtha and alcohol. Zero PEA chemistry. It can loosen gum, but it cannot dissolve hardened carbon. Modern engines need real detergents. Seafoam doesn't have them. Yes, it helps with small dirt, but when injectors clog for real, this old formula fails. What was once a legend is now outdated science, a cure from the past that doesn't fit the engines of today. So the question becomes, what happens when a cleaner is built on diesel oil itself? 6. Abro Fuel Injector Cleaner. Across the world, one bottle is sold as affordable and strong. It's called Abro Fuel Injector Cleaner. Drivers believe it's a bargain, a way to save engines cheaply. But the formula tells another story. It's built on diesel oil. Instead of cleaning, it thickens the fuel. That thickness clogs filters. It twists air-fuel ratios dangerously lean. Engines start to knock. Catalytic converters burn out. And the very owners who thought they were protecting their cars end up killing them faster. A cheap bottle becomes a silent assassin under the hood, because what looks like strength is really slow destruction. And now the question is, what about cleaners made to work with ethanol fuel? 5. Ethanol-based cleaners. In the 2000s, a new wave of bottles hit the shelves. They were sold as ethanol fuel helpers. America's gas pumps were shifting to ethanol blends, so these cleaners promise to protect engines. Ethanol absorbs water, it corrodes fuel lines, and it thins combustion strength. Instead of saving engines, it pushed them into danger. Engines ran lean. Pistons melted, valves burned. The very bottles that claimed to help ethanol actually magnified its damage. A trusted cure turned into a hidden accelerant. Another case where drivers poured in hope and got back ruin. So the question becomes, if ethanol burns your system, what about the oldest so-called magic oil? Number 4. Marvel Mystery Oil. Since the 1920s, one red bottle has built a cult following. It's called Marvel Mystery Oil. For generations, it was praised as a lube, a liquid miracle for old engines. But here's the truth. It was never an injector cleaner. It has zero detergent chemistry. It cannot break down carbon. It cannot wash away varnish. Instead, it leaves a thin film. That film coats injectors and slowly strangles fuel flow. The result? Engines that run dirtier, pistons that fight sludge, and injectors that fail earlier than they should. Drivers pour it in with nostalgia, thinking they're protecting history. But in modern engines, that same nostalgia becomes a nightmare. A name that once meant trust now quietly means trouble. Because what worked in the 1920s is destroying cars in the 2020s. So if Marvel was never meant for injectors, what about bottles laced with straight kerosene? 3 kerosene knockoffs. They look like cleaners, but inside the bottle, they're nothing more than kerosene knockoffs. Flooding markets under dozens of labels. These cheap bottles are still sold today. Here's the danger. Kerosene dilutes fuel. It lowers octane, and it triggers violent engine knock. That knock isn't harmless. It can shatter pistons. It can bend connecting rods. It can end an engine in seconds. What's sold as a protector is really engine poison. Drivers buy it to save a little money, but they're really paying for destruction. Because kerosene doesn't clean, it corrupts. If this countdown is saving you money already, hit subscribe. More car-saving secrets are on the way. And now the question is, if kerosene knockoffs can destroy pistons, what about the alcohol-heavy formulas still sold as tank dryers? 2 alcohol-heavy formulas. Since the 1950s, small bottles of isopropyl alcohol were sold as tank dryers. They promised to fight water in fuel. They promised to stop stalling and rough starts, but the truth is darker. Alcohol cracks rubber seals. It fouls spark plugs, and it forces engines into lean combustion. One quick fix to dry a tank becomes weeks of misfires and ends with a costly rebuild bill. The so-called cure was worse than the disease. Drivers poured it in with hope, but drove away with damage. And now comes the final question. What about the so-called emission miracle that's still being sold in 2025? 1 Cataclean fuel and exhaust cleaner. In the 1990s, one bottle became famous for passing emissions tests. It was called Cataclean. Drivers swore by it. Mechanics kept it behind the counter. But here's the truth. Cataclean is made of acetone, xylene, and IPA. It doesn't clean injectors. It doesn't protect engines. Instead, it fouls oxygen sensors. It clogs catalytic converters in high-mileage cars. Yes, it might help you pass once, but it leaves lasting scars. A shortcut that looks like salvation, but ruins your car for good. So the question remains, which 5 cleaners actually work and why are they trusted by automakers? After 80 years of scams and broken promises, only 5 cleaners remain backed by science and decades of proof. The first is Lucas Deep Clean. Born in the 1980s, it's a safe, multi-purpose PEA cleaner trusted worldwide. Next, Gumut Regain High Mileage. With a higher PEA dose, it's built for older cars fighting years of buildup. Then comes Royal Purple Max Clean. Since the 2000s, it cuts emissions and lasts nearly 10,000 miles per dose. Fourth is Redline SY1. Armed with the strongest PEA, up to 50%, it obliterates carbon like nothing else. And finally, Chevron Techron Concentrate Plus. Since the 1980s, it's the only cleaner recommended by automakers worldwide. The twist? The answer was never magic bottles. It was PEA chemistry and top-tier gasoline since 2004. Not every bottle is bad, but only a handful deserve your trust. 8 to avoid. 5 that work. The truth is finally clear. So ask yourself, when your engine's life is on the line, will you risk it on a $5 scam bottle? Or stick with the proven 5? Your engine's heart is its injectors. Don't let them be destroyed by lies in a bottle. Now you know which 8 to throw away. and which 5 to keep. Subscribe now for more car-saving guides and hidden truths. Comment below, have you ever tried a fuel injector cleaner? Which one? And did it work or fail?